Welcome back to another episode of STEM in Stilettos. This is your host, Morales, and I have to ask you, have you ever felt like a fraud despite your obvious accomplishments? Do you struggle with imposter syndrome, self-doubt, especially when it comes to leading your company or your team or even your family? If this has been any part of your story, you will be happy to know we are going to talk about interrupting your imposter and leading yourself to success today. My guest today is Jaime Mann, and she has 15 plus years of leadership experience and an extensive background in human resources and psychology. Jaime founded the Amaryllis Project, an advisory firm focused on building better leadership through connection. The concept of connection as currency fuels Jaime's practice. She empowers others to build better leadership through the fusion of positive psychology, leadership psychology, behavioral science, mental health science, and self-belief work. Jaime uses her energetic, no-nonsense approach to engage and inspire. Jaime is an associate certified coach, a member of the International Coaching Federation and the Canadian Positive Psychology Association, as well as the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. She is also an imposter syndrome informed coach through the Imposter Syndrome Institute, as well as a Gallup certified strengths coach. She's pursuing a master's degree of professional studies in the psychology of leadership at Penn State University. Welcome to the show, Jaime.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for our talk today.
I'm so excited to have you here because I know for myself, I have to periodically fight down this monster that we call imposter syndrome in order to show up and do the things that I'm here to do and serve the people I'm here to serve. So I'm excited to discuss this today. How did you arrive in this world of imposter syndrome? How did you end up here?
Well, I've always found it really, really interesting because I think, as far as I can recall back, I think it's something that has been prevalent for me and for a number of years, thinking, wow, I really suck. Like, I'm the only one who's struggling with this. And so that's always stuck with me, that feeling of being the one and no one
Mhm.
else kind of has this thing. And it felt really like I hated that feeling. It felt lonely.
Yeah.
I made it very personal.
Yeah, well, and you feel very broken when it feels like you're
Yeah,
the only one that thinks that somebody's going to suddenly discover I'm not
right. Like,
qualified, right?
how come nobody else is sort of like managing this? I guess I must really be not that smart. And so my own sort of personal journey through that led me to a lot of, like, I'm a nerd at heart, so lots of reading, lots of learning, and I just sort of, like a squirrel, was like pulling bits and pieces out. What I saw was helping me, but then in talking with more people and starting to understand that it wasn't just me, and having
Yeah.
conversations with people, it really opened my eyes to how it is so common, even when we're somebody with all the letters behind our name.
And I want to just submit that the reason I think so many women have so many letters behind their name is exactly this.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because in my observation, the guys don't feel as compelled to go get the alphabet soup behind their name as women
Hmm.
are.
Hmm.
It's
And
not to
that's
say there aren't men with multiple
sure,
degrees, but it just
sure.
seems to be a uniquely feminine thing to need to have all of them.
Right. And it goes back, it points back to that research that maybe you've heard of, where if we're wanting to go after a job, women are less likely to actually apply unless we meet all of the criteria, versus men are like, I got 6 out of 10, I'll throw my name in.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that study because
right.
it speaks really, I think, clearly, palpably to the pay gap that exists so much between men and women. I mean, you
Hmm.
start in the same place in the same entry job, but if you consider the fact that the guy is going to go for something he's only maybe 50 or 60% qualified for, and the woman is going to wait until she's got 100% of the pieces, of course there's a pay gap.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's tons of other things that come into play there too. If we had like 100 hours, we
Could dig into all of
yeah,
those. Yeah, I
yeah,
know this is but one piece, but this is massive in
It
and
is
of
massive.
itself, even
It
if you
is
can
massive.
shift your inner psychology so that you're reaching for things that you're maybe 75 or 80% qualified for, you're going to make better progress.
Right. Right. And, that idea that getting really, really straight with ourselves and building deep self-trust to know, okay, I've not done this before. I feel a little bit freaked out about it or a bit overwhelmed, but at the end of the day, I know I'll be able to figure this out.
Yes.
Having
Yes.
that sort of talk track versus, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to make a jerk of myself. And,
And I'm going
it's
to go
just
down in flames and yeah.
right. Catastrophe thinking at its finest. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's lots of bits and pieces that come into play. But just the first point is knowing how common it is. So, if somebody listening is going, yeah, that's me. Wow, I must really suck. No, no, you don't suck at all.
You've
We
just
should expect it.
internalized, yeah, you've just internalized this self-talk that
Right.
women seem to be much more plagued with than men.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
there is, and women usually are much more prone to like rumination and all that kind of. I like to call it getting like twisty and weird. Like that's how I refer to myself. Like I'm getting twisty and weird.
Yeah,
You're just
I
going
call it
down a spiral.
awfulizing.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Awfulizing, yes.
Exactly. So, yeah, so there's a ton of different things we can do to sort of help ourselves through this, but just know that it's a human experience. We should expect it if we're high achieving, if we care about doing a good job, we have standards for ourselves. Like any sort of human out in the world trying to do good things should expect it from time to time.
Exactly. And along the lines of expected, someone shared with me recently that if you have imposter syndrome and you can go, oh, I'm feeling like a fake, you're not actually a fake, you're the real deal, just reaching for something bigger
Right.
because imposters don't question this.
Yeah, no,
If
that's
you
a
were
good
really
point.
an imposter,
That's a good
you
point.
wouldn't be even asking this question.
Right. Yeah. And, the other point to that too, when I work with people, and, even I've used this on myself in the past, but to have some faith in the people around you. So if you've been brought on for this new role or you've been promoted, have some faith in your leadership team. They've seen your work, they've seen something in you, and you take that and you do good work with it and you do your best. You don't spend your time going, oh, I really put one over on them, right?
Yeah,
See,
exactly. And I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop where they discover I'm not nearly
right,
whatever,
right.
whatever
People,
your thing is.
yes, others can see in us what we do not see. And so just to remember that.
Yeah. So, what was the turning point for you? Do you remember a moment where things started to really coalesce around this and you went, oh, wait, it doesn't have to be this way?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, it was a really slow, small stepped sort of journey. I think when I started holding myself accountable to go after the things I wanted to go after and not shying away from them. I
Yeah.
started very quickly these little experiments. They were experiments. I saw them as I tried something, and oh my gosh, I didn't die. The
Yeah.
world didn't collapse.
Exactly. And it worked out or it didn't work out,
It,
but
and
it was
and
not the end
generally,
of world.
right, and
Yeah.
generally it worked out far better than I would have hoped or thought. And even in those couple of instances where, wow, something really didn't go the way I had hoped it would, I'm not going to say it went bad because honestly, I think that there's something that comes out of all the bad stuff,
Yeah.
right?
And bad is relative to what your expectation of the result is.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so I've found if I go into it with that experiment of one mindset, like you're talking about, it's like,
Right.
I'm just going to try this and see.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as devastating
No.
because I had this open mind around, we'll just see what the results are.
Yes, right. And so you make a decision to run a little experiment. I'm not saying you're going to gamble the house and the family and the dog and the cat on
That's
one
not where you
decision.
generally want to start. Yeah.
No, no, but You're going to run an experiment, one that you know, even if it doesn't go the way you want it to go, it's going to be fine. And you're
Right.
going to actually learn something about yourself, whether it's, I actually don't want to go after that, actually doesn't light me up anymore like I thought it would. But you're going
Right.
to learn something that you can apply next time. I think at the end of the day, the understanding that we're more capable than we give ourselves credit for. And once we start going after the proof and we start seeing that, we can start believing it and internalizing it. Because I don't know, in your case, I know people can tell me this, that, and the other. But if I don't believe it, it doesn't matter. And so we have to
Yeah,
build our own system of proof.
exactly. And I had a moment with ChatGPT along these lines because I've never considered myself to be a good writer. And I've had people tell, oh no, you write really well. I wish I wrote as well as you, that kind of stuff. And of course, the imposter inside goes, yeah,
Yeah.
they're just being nice to me,
All
right?
right.
They don't want to upset me. And I had put a bunch of my writing into ChatGPT and asked it to compare it with the writing styles of a couple of other people that it had previously identified as having
Mm-hmm.
similar voices. And these were actually people I'd heard of. This wasn't like some obscure author.
Sure.
And so I said, I'd like you to take this writing sample that I've done and I want you to analyze it in a way that someone could recreate it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it came back and it's like, oh, and stylistically this and stylistically that, and uses these kind of literary hooks and all of this kind of stuff. And it got down to the end and it said, a really engaging writer that blah, blah, blah. And this was before Chat GPT 5, where it would like give you compliments.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
it's like, wow, that I could hear because Chat GPT didn't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's really important to be able to find the you need.
Yeah.
Um, and there's different ways we can go about it. And, we can talk about that. But I find it really interesting already that you've touched on this idea of how we're generally not great at accepting compliments. Like that's one of the
Yes.
things as far as, our to-do list after our talk today, where, I'd like to leave your listeners with some actions that they can start
Oh,
implementing. And
then
one
you
of them
will.
has to do about how do you accept a compliment? Like,
Yeah.
do you dismiss it automatically or do you sit with it and go, yeah, that felt good.
Well,
That's
this is timely because up on our first break, and that's what we do over break is we have little bits of homework that we do for a
oh,
couple of minutes to
okay.
concretely move ourselves forward. So I like this.
Okay.
Let's hear a little bit more about the compliment situation. What are some of the symptoms that you
Wow.
don't receive a compliment well?
Yeah, so first thing is if you feel cringy, icky, or otherwise uncomfortable with accepting any sort of compliment, you have some work to do. There is no reason why a human, such as any of your listeners, shouldn't be able to take a compliment. It doesn't mean we're getting a big head. Like, trust me, that's not something we need to worry about.
I was going to say, you're not
No,
even close. Yeah.
no, no. So if you're like, well, I don't want to get a big head and be that person, trust me, you're not going to be that person. By dismissing the compliment, we're missing out on the good physiological stuff that happens in our body, right? The feel good stuff. That's why happy memories make us feel so blissful. We need to be able to accept a compliment, believe it, so we can recall those things when what hits the fan or we're otherwise having a challenging
Yeah.
day.
A
We
bad
need
hair day.
yeah, right. We need to be able to take that up. So if you're like automatically dismissing a compliment because of luck, that's a big one,
Yes, I
right?
was just lucky.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just in the right place at the right time. No, chances are, anytime I work with somebody who's like, I was just lucky. No, we actually look through all the things they were just lucky about. And it's like, no, that's actually not anything to do with it. So if
Yeah,
you dismiss
luck
it
is
because of
where
luck,
preparation meets opportunity.
exactly.
And you've
Luck.
got to own your preparation.
Right.
Yeah.
Personality, you're like, well, people just seem to like me. I don't know. No. No, don't do it. And then the other one is when you're like, well, it was a team effort. Yes, I'm not telling you to sideline your team members and go,
Right.
look at me, I'm the best. However, you can pause internally and start to sift through what really did you bring to the table? Because I
Yeah.
guarantee there were certain skills, abilities, magical strengths you have that made the difference. But you
Yeah.
need to be able to understand what those things are. And that only comes when you pause and intentionally let it sit.
So before we send them off to spend a little time around this exercise, just
Yeah.
frame up the exercise for us again. What
Okay.
should we be doing over this break?
Okay, so I want you to think of a compliment you received where you automatically dismissed it.
Oh,
Um,
this old thing.
yeah, oh, no, that's me. That's not everyone's good at that, right? I want
Hmm.
you to think of that thing, and I want you to think, okay, was it luck? Was it my personality? However you dismiss it. And now you're going to actually take a moment to think about, okay, maybe I do have a charming personality, but what were the other actions, behaviors, and steps I did that, perhaps with my charming personality, made the difference? We have to see how we impacted that situation. A compliment you dismissed, outline, no. Why did you actually bring this thing about? And why do you deserve that compliment? Because you did something and you're dismissing it.
Yeah, and they weren't just, trying to
No,
fluff you up. So
right.
I love that. Go off, grab your pen, grab your piece of paper. Don't go too far though, because we will be right back from the break. All right, how's that feeling, my dear?
Oh, check it loud, the world here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. Feel no fear. No fear.
Okay. Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I am back with the amazing and wonderful Jaime Mann. And over break, she gave us a little bit of homework. And so, Jaime, what if we had a little problem with our homework? What if we had trouble remembering a compliment because we did such a good job of pushing it off?
Right.
There are several places this can break down. Give us a little advice if it was challenging.
For sure. So if that was challenging, if you still are like, I don't know what this chick in the pink suit is talking about, like, I don't get it, that's okay. What I would say is remember that practice makes permanent. So
Mm.
if we have a sort of ingrained thought habit, or we have been dismissing stuff so quick for our whole lives, it doesn't come naturally just because we're like trying to do things differently. So if that was challenging, what you can do going forward is be intentional about creating a win file. This can
Mm.
look like literally a file on your computer where you're throwing copies of emails in. It can be a paper folder. It can be a journal that you jam pages in and jot things down in,
Yeah,
whatever
stick
works for
sticky
you.
notes on. Yes.
Anything, however it works. But what you need to do going forward is you need to start sort of documenting your successes or your wins or your compliments, right? However you want to think about it. But what we can start doing is therefore building like our proof project essentially, because we can't sort of change things that are super ingrained without probably a little bit of effort. And on those days, like when we are challenged, it's going to be hard to call something up. Our
Yeah,
brains don't work that way.
exactly. Once you're in a certain track, it wants to stay in that
Yes.
track. There's like a certain momentum that builds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we have our well-worn sort of thinking pathways in our brain, right? And it's kind of hard to mow down a new one automatically. So start your win file because this is going to allow you literally to look at tangible evidence, tangible proof. And what you can start doing is working through when you're like, I don't know if this one counts. Like I'm always just been good at that.
Yeah, exactly.
That means you're good at it. That is exactly
Exactly.
what it
It's
means.
one of your natural geniuses.
Exactly. And that's actually one of the things that the reason why I sort of decided to do some Gallup strengths work was very reason, because sometimes we're not very good at noticing our natural talents and strengths. And so to be able to have a report and an assessment, it's like proof. And
Yeah.
so for people who need the proof like I do, right? That was sort of something I found really useful.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's one of my beefs that I've had with the self-improvement world. I've been in and out and through and around that for a great many years, but it's always the what about you this week that are we going to go fix?
yeah,
And that's one of the things I like about Gallup is it's like, you know what? Water is the thing that's already growing that's
right.
amazing.
Right. Well, and then it's just sort of a momentum you're building, right?
Yeah.
So the stuff that naturally we're good at, that's the stuff that feels good. Like that's just sort of air quotes who we are. And so how can we do more of that? And how can we sort of celebrate the things that make us who we are? Because every single one of us has strengths, talents, and abilities that differ.
Yeah.
You're going to be magically awesome at certain things that I'm not so awesome at. And that's why you're who you are. And just because they come naturally to us doesn't mean we shouldn't be proud of them and celebrate them and believe them, right, about
Yeah.
ourselves. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, and we're not going
Well,
to get a big head. Don't worry about that.
well, yeah, and I've found for myself as I'm moving through this world, I'm not a, what do I want to say, naturally inclined to be organized.
Okay.
But I have this value of wanting to deliver on time schedule for my commitments. And so I do have a talent for automation.
Right.
And so I use that strength to make me look more put together, more organized, and more Johnny on the spot than I
Right.
innately am.
Right.
And I
Right.
don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, that's beautiful. And that makes me think of, in the Gallup Clifton Strengths world. So if organization isn't your sort of natural your strength, what you've done is you've been able to utilize other strengths to basically lift that one up, because we are who we are. It's going to be layers of different strengths that all work with each other. So in myself, I remember when I first did mine, communication actually for me is very low. And I remember when I got that result back, I was like, oh, how am I going to lead anybody? What?
Yeah, how am I going to
I,
survive if
how,
I'm
what?
not a strong communicator? Yeah.
Just put me to bed. I'm done. Geez, right? But the thing is it's all the way we utilize our other strengths. And we've been able, like in your case, right? You're understanding really how to get the best out of yourself. And you've made those adaptive changes to do so. And I think that's what any good leader needs to do, because nobody is perfect. And in fact, one of the types of imposter syndrome is the perfectionist. Nobody's perfect.
I am a
No.
recovering perfectionist. I have to own that.
You know what? I'm a
I've
proud
I've
perfectionist.
I've got a screensaver that says done beats perfect.
Mhm. That is true. That is very true. We should do a whole nother talk on perfectionism. That's
Oh,
fascinating also.
please, Jesus, because there are plenty of us who are recovering from that particular one. But since you brought up the research,
Yeah.
what are the other categories?
So yeah, the categories that I'm referring to come from the work of Dr. Val Young. For anybody who wants to read up, she's got a really great book. The 5 categories, perfectionist is one of them, and so this in each categories, just to put it into sort of context, the interesting thing about them is we can look at how each of these types of person sort of defines being competent. So, for
Ah,
instance, the perfectionist really has highly, highly unrealistic standards for themselves
Yes.
and works very diligently to meet those standards. This results in stress and anxiety, and also because this person looks at competency as never making any type of
Mistake.
mistake.
Yep.
A perfectionist is not going to be super outgoing and trying new things, because when you try something new, how likely is it you're going to be perfect?
Out
Not.
out the door, yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen. And so a perfectionist, competency means I do everything perfectly. There's no such thing, but that's a whole other
Yeah,
day
exactly.
discussions. But it causes a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of overworking, not trying new things. Um, but this person is also going to focus on any tiny little thing they feel didn't meet the mark, and they're
Yes.
not going to be okay with celebrating what actually went well.
Yeah, you'll see that with woodworkers. I've gotten into woodworking
Ah,
recently,
cool.
and it's very hard to accurately cut something to the size that you want. There's always a little plus or minus, or
Sure.
it's a little off square or whatever. And you will have to do things to sort of finagle it to get it
Yeah,
to be the way it is.
right.
But the thing the perfectionist woodworker doesn't realize is no one else will ever see or notice those things.
100%.
No one will know that you had to put leveling feet on it so that it would
Yep.
sit level.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, but what we do is we kind of undercut us and we're like, look at my table. I'm pretty proud of what I've done. But, I did have to put leveling feet on it, or you'll notice
Right.
that it's not exactly perfectly square. It's like, yeah,
Right.
no, they wouldn't have noticed at all if you hadn't pointed it out.
That is precisely the case with lots of the work we do in our organizations, right? So we could do a presentation that is beautiful, and everyone is like loving it, but somebody says, hmm, I would have liked around the reasoning for A, but B and C were actually really, really great. That was a great presentation. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
and
going
the
to walk away.
perfectionist will go and beat
Ooh.
themselves with a.
Oh, A. I'm just gonna fixate on that. Never mind the fact that maybe I managed to pull together this presentation as a favor to my boss. I didn't have much time. I nailed it. I killed it.
Yeah,
But in my brain, no,
yeah,
fail, fail.
exactly. How
So
do
it's
we start
huge.
to offset that kind of what do I want to say, a negative mental track?
Yeah. Well, and this comes down to like the way we think and how our thoughts, first of all, they impact emotions and then how we behave. And there's a whole sort of cycle from that. Because if, you know, just as a side note, if we go out and do something that we don't feel ready to do, and we keep going out and doing the things we don't feel ready to do, we slowly start to feel like we're ready to do them. It's sort of like everything's all related. But if we want to start changing the way we think about things and changing how we approach things, we do have to sort of take out some of our mind trash. That's kind of how I refer to it. And
Yeah.
in any of the categories, whether it's the perfectionist or the expert or the natural genius, we have to start really reframing how we think about competency
Well,
or
and
failure.
notice how we're thinking about our competency, I
Right.
think is really the most critical first step because I know when I first went into self-development work and this sort of thing, I just thought my thoughts were these things that spontaneously sprung out of nowhere
Right.
and that I didn't have real influence over them. This
Right.
is just my natural reaction. And the longer I've been on this journey, the more I've noticed that the first step is noticing,
Yeah.
because once you've noticed, you can identify the gap that allows you to take it from that reflexive response to a response that you choose.
Yeah. 100%. And many times when we think about changing our thoughts, yeah, I know in my case, my experience and many others I've talked to is that if we're like, I'm a high achiever, I always have like these big things I'm working on. So yeah, obviously I want to think thoughts that are effective for me. So I go from thinking, okay, I think this really negative thought. Okay, what's the opposite? And I pick super big, thought that's super optimistic and like all encompassing. And when I
And
try it,
radically 180 degrees from the other way.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you try it, your brain calls BS on you and goes, idiot. That
Yeah.
that is true. You are a giant loser. Like, what are you talking about? And you go, I can't even do this right. Oh, shucks.
Shucks. Yeah.
And I'm kind of like poking fun at it. But if anyone listening notices that tendency, and for many of us who like are always going after things and we want to do amazing work, and that's kind of a common thing. So
Yeah.
notice that if you've ever thought, I can't change my thoughts, I can't change anything, I tried, it doesn't work, that could be the reason. And so we need to sort of, I think about it like small steps, baby steps,
Yes.
laddering your thoughts. If you're going from point A all the way to point B, you got to bring point B a little closer.
Well, and recognize it's not going to be one giant leap, right?
Exactly.
It's like walking to get somewhere.
Right.
You don't just magically spring from here to there. We don't have teleporters yet.
Right. Right. You
You
have to
know?
bring your brain along for the ride. Your
Yeah,
brain isn't going to be cool if you try to go from A to B with one huge giant leap. Your brain won't
exactly.
let you.
We are up on our second break already. What do you recommend for our homework over this?
Hmm. Well, I have a question about, that would be useful for people to think about. There's a couple of common coping mechanisms that come with imposter syndrome, one of which is procrastination.
Mm,
Another one is sort of being stuck, never start something, never
yeah.
finishing something. And another one, self-sabotage. So, on the break, maybe people can sort of think about, okay, how do I cope with this thing if you
Yeah.
experience imposter syndrome? What are
What
your
does
coping?
what does self-sabotage tend to look
That
like?
can be things like, um, let's say I worked with somebody once who was doing a big presentation at an annual conference. And so they went the night before the conference was like
Welcome
gala night.
party. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
the party. And this person was very nervous and feeling very unsure about the presentation they were going to give. And so the night before, they made the decision to stay out late, have lots of fun, not go home and get a good night's sleep, not maybe run through their slides one last time, not sort of get in the right headspace. And then the presentation wasn't as good as they had hoped. And so essentially, the behaviors that they chose to do brought about that
That less than
lackluster
stellar. Yeah,
experience.
exactly.
And so, what do we do to self sabotage, right? Bring
Yeah.
about sort of the thing we are fearing the most, because sometimes we
Hmm.
do that.
Okay, very good. So grab your pen, grab your piece of paper, ask yourself that question. Where do you procrastinate, self-sabotage, and what was the third one?
We
Oh,
can,
not finishing and not starting.
yeah, just
Stuck.
freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hang with us.
Oh, check it out, but we're here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
We should
Yeah, you want to
probably
touch
pick
on
that
the
up
other
when we come
ones?
back. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for hanging with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I am back with the amazing and wonderful Jaime Mann. And before the break, we gave you a little bit. I hope you had some time to figure out where your avoidance behavior is cropping up. You mentioned there were several different imposter syndromes. We
Yes.
talked at great length about the perfectionist, but what are
Mhm.
some of the other ones?
So another one is the expert. And so this is the person that in order to sort of feel like they're competent, they need to have all the answers. They need to know all the things. So, you think of somebody who's been working in, their field their whole lives, and they can spout off every bit of research, you know what I mean? They know all the things. That's not as likely for us who are, we're working our way through our years. Maybe we're in a new profession. Maybe we're
Right.
starting a new role. If our tendency is to be the expert, or that's what competency means to us, really putting a lot of pressure and stress on ourselves. And so, how is it that anybody is going to know everything?
Yeah,
Not,
exactly.
not.
Even after 50 years in scientific
Right.
research and all that, the only thing you know at that point is that objectively you do not know it all.
Yeah, right. And so remind yourself, if you see yourself in that expert category. The other one is the natural genius. The natural genius is somebody who, if I'm competent, it means that everything always comes easily to me. So think of that, when we're trying new things. Sure, if we have a natural sort of strength with sports, I know people who can try any sport and be pretty good right off the hop.
Yeah,
That's not
exactly.
me.
It's not
Um,
me either.
but
I'm
the
like
natural
last to be
genius,
chosen, right?
right, right. And so failure for these folks is going to be like, if I struggle to pick something up quickly, I suck. So notice your tendency there, if you like the natural genius sort of belief system. And then the last two is the soloist. So the soloist, like, I do everything on my own.
Yes, the
They're
rugged
not going to ask for
independent.
help. Independent.
Exactly.
They're not going to ask for help. And their belief is that if they're a competent person, they should be able to handle everything on their own.
Yeah.
Again, stressful. And in today's world, how likely is that?
I,
It's just not.
it's not how the world has ever worked,
No,
honestly.
true.
And, I was kind of raised around that. My mother was one of these rugged, independent kind of
Yeah,
people. And I can remember when I was getting married the second time, I was getting married on a shoestring.
yeah,
And I had invited some friends of mine who had particular skills. There was one who was good with a camera, and one who was a great organizer, and one who was, really good with DJing and that kind of stuff. And I like, would you be willing to come and do the reception with me? And when my family showed up, it's like all hands on deck. We're going to decorate the
right.
hall. And I can remember my mother just was really upset and offended
Yeah,
that I would have outsourced my responsibilities to other people in this wholesale kind of fashion. And it's like, I
right.
don't know anybody that does a wedding all by themselves.
Yeah, 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 right. And if you think about that, when we're at work, we can really kind of get ourselves into just a very high stress sort of headspace if we feel I can't ask for help because you'll know I'm incompetent if I do.
Yes. Mhm.
So that's where the soloist lies. And then the last one is the superhero. So the superhero, um, this sort of person is like, how many things can I do? Like, I should be able to do every role at the same time and have
Yeah.
no issues with it. And so if I'm unable to take on more, that means I'm a failure. So you can see how, like, all of these different sort of archetypes really lend themselves to sort of excessive, like, anxiety and stress and pressure, and think of
Yeah.
the burnout and all of that.
Absolutely. Well, and you might know you're one of those people when you leave and they have to hire four people to replace you.
Right,
Hello.
right, right. And so the thing is, imposter syndrome, looking at research, interestingly, more recent research points to the fact that, like, rates of imposter syndrome in men are still quite high.
Mm.
Now there's a whole thing about, like, do men report it as much as women? There's that whole thing.
Yeah.
Women still have higher incidence of imposter syndrome. And the way that, context matters here, and sort of our society and how our society works matters here, because people who are underrepresented, specifically like women in STEM, for instance,
Yes, exactly.
women of color,
in
right?
STEM, like
Right.
to the end. Yes.
Right. So being underrepresented is a real sort of factor here, and being the first. So I think maybe we
Mm,
talked about this, Sophia, when we had our initial conversation. But let's say you're the first in your family to go to university.
that'd be me.
Right.
Yep.
So if you're the first or you're underrepresented, so you're the only, those are two things that really kind of ratchet up the rate of experiencing this. But men and women do experience it. I just wanted to put that out there. But
Yeah.
STEM
Yeah.
it's a highly competitive field, and if you're
Yes, it is.
underrepresented, those are two big factors.
So, how can we start to pick this apart for ourselves? We mentioned noticing
Hmm.
is an important part and working to introduce new thoughts that we can
Yep.
repeat and create
Yep.
some new pathways. What else, what other skills should we bring to the table as we're working through this whole imposter situation?
Right. So first, I just want to, again, reiterate that it's super common and normal.
Yep.
So just because we have a thought, like let's say I experience this feeling of imposter syndrome. So I believe I'm not as intelligent as everybody else thinks I am. I'm afraid one day soon people are going to find out I'm just no good, right? So I'm
Yeah.
experiencing all of this. The thought I have in my head is very important here. So the idea of noticing is absolutely key. So we need to get real about the facts. Um, Normalizing it. It is not just you and it is not just me. That's the first thing. And also getting real with the fact that humans in general, our brains are tricky. They're tricky
Mm.
and they will try to sort of make sense of things and dismiss certain things and bring in other like it just
Oh,
because
and
of a
we'll make
thought.
up stories in the vacuum of information, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
So the thoughts that come into our brain, we need to be a curious observer and we need to question them. So sometimes when I talk to people, like, and there's a thought that comes up again and again, like, I'm no good at running meetings. Could be anything,
Yeah.
but something that comes up again and again for you, like you need to sort of hold that thought out and observe it and think, how true is this though?
Really. Yeah.
Yes. Like, is this true with a capital T true, or is this like little t true? And I think I believe this because of these different things that have happened, but it's really not true. So it's just a habit thought that is quick to come up. Doesn't mean I need to believe it. So
Yeah.
that's where this noticing is really important because we all have thoughts from time to time that are not helpful. They're actually not true with a capital T,
Yeah.
and they cause extra sort of angst.
Well,
So
and some of
noticing.
them are not true at all. Some of
No,
them are outright lies that we've told ourselves from what I want to say, from a place of history that
yeah,
maybe
right.
doesn't even apply here, right?
Right,
Yeah.
100%. So, thinking about, I personally found it really beneficial to sort of think about what, okay, why do I keep having this thought? Like, how come I sort of tend to think this is accurate? Because logically, I know it's not, but it's still something that sits in my gut, like it's real. So why? Why is that? And many times we've all been bumped around and dragged through the mud from time to time, whether we were young in school, whether it was early in our careers, whether it was last week, whatever. We all have those experiences that really do shape us. And
Right.
so we can consider, you know, do we want to take that thought as true anymore? Is it true?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times we will develop a thought or a strategy to help us get through a certain moment in time.
Right,
And it was perfectly valid for getting us through that moment in time.
right.
But that moment in time is gone now. And you
Yeah,
have to kind of ask, is this still serving me sometimes with the thoughts and the reflexes and the responses that we have?
100%. We're very good at being on autopilot, especially if you think of, as we've progressed in life and in our careers, the pressures and the things we're doing and all the things we have to take care of on a day-to-day, they've just increased. And so we do become autopilots. The thoughts that we routinely had, they just come fast and furious. And so we do need to be intentional about deciding which ones we want to work on changing and which ones we do take to be true and we want to use. But it's a
Yeah.
choice, absolutely, because you are not your thoughts. I am not my thoughts. They show up and it's my choice of what I want to do with them. And I know that sort of sounds maybe simplistic because it doesn't happen overnight to try and kind of sort them out and change them. But there's a few type of thoughts that over and over and over I see to be very common and sort of not very helpful if you're interested in hearing them.
Yeah, let's hear about those quick.
Okay,
We're
so there's
getting
a
down to
few.
the last little bit, but I think
Okay.
this is going to be very helpful.
Okay, so there's a couple that come up again and again. We tend to be pretty good at all or nothing thinking.
Yes.
So we don't sort of think on a discerning sort of continuum. We're right or we're wrong. We
This
fail
works
or
or
we
it didn't.
succeed.
Yep.
Exactly. So all or nothing thinking. And it's going to be different for everybody, but notice where that shows up because those are not accurate thoughts and they're probably causing you some angst. The other one is the shoulds. I
Mm-hmm.
should be able to do this if I'm any good. I
Yeah.
should be able to do this if I'm the district manager,
Well,
all
it
of
should
that.
have out this other way. Yeah.
Right, right. Notice shoulds. A should is a nice little flag to pause and look at that. The other one is catastrophizing. So instead of thinking, oh, I'm new at this and I feel a little bit overwhelmed, we think, oh my God, this is going to go so bad. I'm going to lose my job. No one's going to hire me. I'm going to have
Yeah,
to sell the house and move in with my mom and I'm going to live with cats and I'm going to die alone, right? All of that.
yeah, a bag lady under a bridge. Yes.
Right. And I sort of poke fun at it, but you get the point. It's just how likely is that? Not likely.
Yeah.
But we
There are
just get caught.
so many other outcomes in between those two extremes.
Absolutely. And then the other one, which is kind of another like low-hanging fruit that's very common, is when we think in absolutes. So the two that I'll definitely point out for you to notice is when you think always or never.
Yes.
Oh, I always mess this up. I never get anything right.
I can never remember people's names. Yes,
Right.
that.
Maybe that's true at the end of the day on a Friday when you've had a heck of a week. That's not always true,
Yeah,
generally. So
exactly. Because you
notice.
do remember certain people's names. So
That's
give
right.
yourself credit.
Right. So
Yeah.
just notice those are some really quick thought habits that most of us tend to have. And those are good places to start to notice where you might want to improve your thoughts.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. So we're down to the very end, and you brought a gift with the listeners today. Is that correct?
I do have a little bit of a questionnaire reflection piece that we can
Nice.
share. And it can help you look at, okay, where do you think you fall as far as imposter syndrome? Like, how does it show up for you? And a couple of that you can take in order to sort of start your own journey to kind of manage it. Because at the end of the day, imposter syndrome, although it's been called a syndrome, it's not some sort of big health thing. It's ineffective, faulty thinking habits.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
And you can totally change those.
You can, and you have all the power to do so. It just takes a little bit of effort.
I love that. So you can check the show notes for the link to the little questionnaire and also for Jamie's contact information if you'd like to have a deeper discussion with her or engage with her work. Um, what is your words of wisdom for us, Jamie, before we let you go?
Um, I would say that, you know, Our brains are messy, tricky little devils. And we do want to sort of approach our thoughts with a little bit of curious sort of experimenting. I would say that we lose our curious nature as we get older. Just bring more of that in. And for the STEM folks out there, you guys are generally more curious than the average. So lean into that because there's a lot going on inside you that you're not harnessing. And so get a little bit mindful and a little curious about where you want to go, and take the steps from here.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jamie.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you, dear listener, for investing your time here with us today. We aim to make this show useful to you and practical on a day-to-day basis. If you have a speaker you would like me to talk to, if you have a topic you'd like to see me take on, if you have a compliment or criticism, I'm open to all of that. You can comment below the show, or you can send me an email to Zofia, Zofia, at steminstilettos.com. And until next week, go out, be bold, be beautiful,